Gamers of the Underworld. Chapters 121 to 135. Chapter 121. Learn blacksmithing from me. Spectators, we can see how the short goblins in full armor appear comical. They charge at each other and don't dare to antagonize Metal Devourer, who is standing in the middle like a victor. Nobody dares to get close to him as he swings his wooden club. Oh, the goblins are fighting. They use their swords, to stab each other? A male lizardman presenter, who was standing on a high stage, overlooked the goblins killing each other. The arena became a grotesque massacre ground. Random voices came from the spectator stands. Bro, impressive, that's more like it. The orc and gnome battle was trash. The orc lifted his own scalp and flew up. It was too fake. Where did they find such goblins? Interesting. The lizard man was stunned. Being a professional, he suppressed his fear and continued speaking. We're seeing a goblin hack another's arm and biting the goblin's ear. Oh my god, is that a head? It's flying up? Metal Devourer is leaving the arena. He's walking towards the resting area. He spoke to the referee and left with him. I have to report this to security. The situation is out of control. The tens of spectators were excited by the bloodshed. The fighting in the arena wasn't that bloody, at least not spiritually speaking. The three teams charged towards Arthur and not wearing pants. They had only run halfway when they noticed that three goblins didn't have green names. That meant they were NPCs. Not wearing pants charged out and shouted to the other gamers, please stop. We've received a hidden mission. The three of them are Winterfell's death row inmates. They're thinking of escaping the prison and finding Sherlock. The gamers responded excitedly after hearing not wearing pants words. Why are you so lucky? Where did you receive this mission? What are the rewards? Call me daddy, otherwise, I'll kill both of you and your mission will be gone. Wah, that's vicious. I like it, let me see if I can hit your mission NPC. A gamer hacked at a hamster with his weapon. The hamster was shocked. He wobbled in the loose armor and ran behind Arthur for protection. 20-odd goblins chatted while the other gamers were still performing a massacre and providing entertainment to the spectators. Soon, a team of fully armed orcs rushed into the arena and subdued the fighting gamers. Don't move, kneel down and hug your heads. Stand there, did you hear me? Stand right there, don't resist. Lord Sherlock, the fat boss of the arena, the poison toadman, looked at the grotesque corpses being carried out of the arena. He was dumbfounded as he looked at Sherlock and said, what's this about? Like I've said, my goblins are excellent gladiators. They'll bring sizable profits to your arena. Sherlock smiled as though he didn't see his servants' grotesque corpses. No, it's not about the profits. If someone investigates, the Underworld labor union. The arena boss looked worried. Sherlock took a uranium stick from the boss's chest pocket. He used mana to light up the stick and then put it into the boss's mouth. The Underworld was such a wonderful place once. Chaotic and without order. Innovative art erupted everywhere. The rowdy gladiator arena was a symbol of unlimited wealth. But now, look at the pathetic gladiator line. Frankly speaking, I'm a passionate lover of gladiator fights. I'm in the dungeon daily, thinking of new and innovative gimmicks for the arena. Sherlock pointed at the grotesque corpses of the goblins and said, but they're different. They're the new age darlings and the hopes of the gladiator world. Think about it. The goblins, which are like rapidly multiplying ants, can provide new stimulation to the senses. The spectators will like it. How's that? My price is fair, 10 magic stones for each goblin. Nobody will lodge complaints and sob over deaths. Nobody will sit on the Beetlemon's head and harass you. The boss took a few puffs of the uranium stick and spat out a mushroom cloud. But the death compensation. Don't worry, I know your difficulties. Don't worry about death compensation. But the goblin's equipment. Sherlock lifted up a piece of damaged armor at the side. Understand, I fully understand. We'll take care of the equipment. How can we let Lord Sherlock pay for the equipment? The arena boss was full of respect for Sherlock and gave his promise. Sherlock and the arena boss had another round of intimate discussion. They decided to create their terms and choose a date for a formal contract. The proceedings went smoothly, just as Sherlock had expected. I didn't expect the gladiator arena to be in such a pathetic state. During my time, gladiatorial combat was a very popular sport, Brew said nostalgically. It was out of my expectations too. I haven't visited a gladiator arena for more than 100 years. The times are different. Sherlock sighed and saw the gamer not wearing pants walking to his side. Shirley, not wearing pants, said secretively to Sherlock, "We've received a hidden mission. Please take a look." Sherlock gazed at the secretive not wearing pants and followed him. Sherlock saw Arthur, 3 goblins without green names, and 3 unclothed gamers standing in a corner. Though they were wearing goblin armor, black and white fur was peeping out from the helmets. The eyes were different from that of goblins as well. They were hamsters. The 3 hamsters spoke in voices that suggested inhalation of helium. "Lord Sherlock, we're pitiful. Are there things to eat?" Arthur stood out and said to the hamsters, "We've completed your request. This is Lord Sherlock of Eternal Kingdom." "Eternal Kingdom dungeon? Lord Sherlock has a dungeon? Where's the food?" The 3 hamsters spoke at the same time. Pom, pom, pom. A slim goblin named Raintia sat on a pile of soil at the flower bed. Little Fairy sat on her bed and looked at the sad goblin who was sitting in front of a wilted flower and wiping her tears. This goblin would always cry silently every time the flowers wilted. The other gamers observed from a distance. They wanted to console Raintia, but they were wary of Little Fairy spitting at them. Little Fairy stood up and walked towards the wilted flower. The gamers retreated when Little Fairy advanced. She squatted down and used her white fingers to touch the wilted flower, which came back to life after that. Raintia looked dumbstruck at Little Fairy, who rose up, shut her eyes, hugged her arms, and looked proud. "Humph, it's not because you're sad. I saved the flowers because I pitied them. Don't be mistaken." Little Fairy waited for a while, but Raintia didn't respond. She said, "What a rude goblin. You're indeed an evil underworld creature." "Sorry, no, thank you," Raintia said as she returned to her senses. "Humph, I don't intend to keep you as my disciple. You look like someone when you cultivate the plants. Cultivation is not done like that. Fool." The surrounding gamers shouted in anger, "Why are you scolding her? She's my Raintia goddess." Little Fairy spat saliva. Pooey. The furnace was lit with fire in the blacksmith shop as Simba worked on the diamond seam. Standard equipment was created like a water flow from the magic furnace. There was a long queue outside. They were the novice gamers waiting to buy equipment. Simba had dark eye rings as he hadn't rested for 3 days. He hadn't even smoked for 3 days. He didn't have time. Since the novice gamers arrived, the stockpiled equipment was all sold. The goblin worked like crazy excavating and carrying bricks. Once they received bronze coins, they came to him to buy equipment. They were thin with hunger and looked as though a breeze would blow them away. Why did they not buy food? Why were they suffering from hunger? They should buy food to eat and a bed to rest. What was the use of buying equipment? Were they able to be gladiators? Pom. He hammered extremely hard as he felt angrier the more he thought about it. Why did he have to work harder than the goblins with a pittance? He looked at the goblin, Sealhead Ling Chong, in front of him. He was taken aback. Yes, the crazy workaholic goblins. Hey, Sealhead Ling Chong was stunned as he gazed at Simba, who hailed him. "You look pretty. Why don't you learn blacksmithing from me?" Simba asked. The group of goblins behind rushed forward. "Teach me. I want to learn blacksmithing." Chapter 122. Dragon of Helling Empire. Sherlock brought his goblins back to Eternal Kingdom. The gamers who weren't brought back were disintegrated using mana. Because they couldn't wait for their corpses to revive, they recreated their characters. There was no penalty for death in a special mission. When Sherlock returned to the dungeon, he discovered a strange thing. Little Fairy was squatting with Raintia and discussing something. The veteran and novice gamers surrounded them at a distance of 20 meters and listened to their conversation intently. The strangest thing was at the blacksmith shop. The novice gamers and tens of veteran gamers knelt down around the blacksmith shop to beg. "Blacksmith, I want to learn blacksmithing. Let me be a blacksmith. I can be 996. A novice gamer called Magical Beast Man with 4 Carp Kings shouted the loudest, "Blacksmith. I know what Eternal Kingdom looks like at 4 a.m. Let me learn blacksmithing." This fellow is watching the scenery at 4 a.m. He doesn't look diligent. Choose me. I'm carrying bricks at 4 a.m. Simba threw his hammer out of the blacksmith shop. Whoever shouts again, I'll teach him a good lesson. The area outside the blacksmith shop became deathly quiet. The blacksmith shop was filled with tens of good-looking goblins. Sherlock thought for a while before he returned to the Dungeon Lord main hall and browsed the forum. He found a popular post by a novice gamer, Water Orchid, whether you can learn blacksmithing with your looks. Studying the aesthetic values of the NPCs. The post was about Simba recruiting good-looking goblins as his apprentices. Raintia was also good-looking. There was a criterion for learning life skills, which was that the goblin must be good-looking. The conclusion was that whether the molded face was good-looking affected the chances of learning life skills. Sherlock rubbed his face and asked Brew, "What's going on? Let me check the data?" 20 minutes later. "So that's how it is." Sherlock sipped his cup of bloody chrysanthemum tea and thought for a while before saying, "Where did they obtain their mana?" Training one's magical power is not an easy feat. Without mana, there's no way to harvest the plants quickly or activate the magic furnace. Do they expect to plant for a few months or create equipment for tens of days like in the Otherworld? With regards to these issues, Lord Sherlock, please take a look, Brew said as an image appeared above the dungeon core. Under the guidance of Little Fairy, Raintia extended both her hands, which were accumulating white mana. The gamer was fondling a sprout, and she smiled contentedly. She didn't look tired from using mana. Sherlock narrowed his eyes and said, "That's my mana? The goblins that I summoned can use my mana?" "Yes, they can, Lord Sherlock." Brew explained, "They were created using your mana. Using the explanation of the surface world, you used mana to create them, so you're their god. They worship you, love you, and are loyal to you. They are closely related to you and can use your power. According to what I know, if the believer is devout enough, he can obtain the Holy Lord's power after worshipping him. The more devout the believer, the greater the power. That was the power of the sacred light. Mana requires long periods of training for manifestation, but this occurrence is like a mutated mana and is similar to the power of sacred light. Their powers are not trained but obtained from you. As for the quantity of mana, it depends on their races. Every race's magical tolerance varies. I feel that this is an important research topic that can be studied by Brainiac." Sherlock tried to organize his thoughts. Simply said, "I'm their stored mana pool. When they feel like using mana, they'll learn to feel mana before opening the tap. And it'll be an accessible flow once it's opened?" Sherlock massaged his face as he inhaled deeply and asked, "How long can I live?" Lord Sherlock? Brew was shocked. Though 2,100 gamers aren't considered many, what if all of them learn to feel mana and use it like tap water every second and every minute? Even if I'm a superior devil, do you think I can survive the month? Sherlock looked haggard and muttered to himself, "There are many computer games that I'll like to play." Lord Sherlock, this joke isn't funny. Brew was a bit tongue-tied. Then he said, "Lord Sherlock cut off the mana pool from all the gamers with the exception of Raintia just now. In consideration for my safety, I have to close my tap permanently." Sherlock looked as though he was going to die just now, but he laughed heartily. "This is a pleasant surprise. Every devil is able to create life using mana. I don't think anyone will want to use normal creatures. But Lord Sherlock, it's not a good solution to disable the gamer's mana channel permanently. Most of the gamers would like to learn mana. Aren't you going to let them experience it?" "Of course, I'll let them have a taste. This is a very good way to make them do hard labor." Sherlock waved his hand as though he was drawing a blueprint. New system. Mana. A goblin can use 100 units of mana daily until it's exhausted. On the second day, they can use reputation points to buy a small blue potion to recover 10 units of mana. How's that? I can think of ways to make them work diligently. Lord Sherlock, you're an excellent strategist. Brew said excitedly. For the detailed plan, I have to see the posts on the forum. Frankly speaking, I'm still not sure of the gamer's preferences. Let me create a post to ask. Sherlock accessed his computer and created a post on the forum. Post for soliciting feedback on magical-related profession. Hello, gamers and friends. The second beta test was warmly received by gamers. The development team has decided to release a new system, Mana. Hence, we are soliciting feedback from gamers. I will explain the current settings used by the development team. Sherlock sat in front of the computer and tapped furiously on the keyboard. Sherlock was planning to make the gamers work harder and create new gameplay. At Ancient Ruins number 85, which was the ancestral ruins to the gamers, tens of goblins were scavenging the ruins using their bare hands. There were the words Leather Bear, BT Kangren, taking Jujube pills, and Pele Wong above the heads of the goblins. Load them onto the small pushcart and push it back to exchange everything for rewards. Chairman BT Kangren said that a bronze coin is equivalent to 2 renminbi. That's twice the price of the market. Taking Jujube pills shouted to the working gamers. Thank you, boss. Thank you, chairman. We'll work hard to make the chairman poor. Are there YY activities tonight? Is Leather Bear Gal singing? What singing? I sang the song, Hate Beyond Death, last night. I almost died, so I'm not singing. The few gamers chatted merrily as they cleared the rubble in the ruins. In the ancestral ruins, there was a lot of debris and hidden stuff which could be exchanged for reputation points and game currency at the dungeon core. Currently, the most important things in the game were reputation points and game currency, as they were used for almost everything. The gamers could obtain both by searching for treasures in the ancestral ruins. With the appearance of 2,000 novice gamers, the search for the treasures in the ancient ruins accelerated. The gamers went deep into the ruins to search for treasures. What about the floor and furniture? Those that could be carried were all transported out. The items couldn't be disposed of as they liked. Items that were labeled as trash, such as rocks, metal scraps, and heavily damaged furniture, were thrown at the garbage center at the entrance of the Dungeon Lord main hall. Items like candle holders, good furniture, nice floor tiles, and wall bricks were kept by the gamers. Those with organizations placed the items in an empty cave at the living quarters to indicate their occupation. Those without caves would find a convenient location to store the items. Nobody would steal the items in Eternal Kingdom. Previously, a gamer was caught stealing from an NPC, and his account was terminated. Nobody tried stealing other gamers' equipment since it would be disastrous if their account was terminated. To be able to play Dungeon Eternal Kingdom was a blessing from a previous life. As the gamers were searching for treasures, someone found something amiss and shouted, "Wait, there's a huge basement door." Everybody gathered to take a look. Indeed, there was a huge basement door. It was dark, and nothing could be seen. Someone charged inside and shouted, "Wah!" His voice reverberated inside. After that, there was a sound. Roar. A loud bellow came from the basement. A huge claw bashed through the floor and captured a few gamers. The pupils of a huge beast peered through the bashed hole, and the area surrounding the eyeballs was full of scales. "Who dares to awaken the Helling Dragon?" the creature with the large eyeballs said. Chapter 123. I am still a child. Sherlock was still planning a comprehensive monosystem to make the gamers work diligently when the forum exploded with activity. A novice gamer, Leather Bear, created a post. Sensational news. The dragon and dungeon are standard configurations. A dragon was found while excavating the ruins. As for the other posts, the lousy game producers make updates secretly. Calling the post creator. Veteran Raintia discovered a new profession. Calling the post creator. Detailed methods on how to fawn on the blacksmith. Calling the post creator. Sherlock was going to read these posts later since he was curious what the silly gamers would write. He was surprised that a dragon had appeared in the dungeon. Due to the appearance of the dragon, he didn't receive many replies. Everyone's attention was focused on the dragon. The content of Leather Bear's post was simple. It was just a blurred picture of the dragon. Leather Bear said that a few of the gamers were captured in the dark, black house and then thrown out soon after. They were puzzled as to what had happened. Some gamers stayed back to stand guard, while others went to get more gamers to observe. Sherlock closed the pages of the forum and made use of the dungeon core to observe the gamers. In the surveillance images, a group of goblins were inside the dark ancestral ruins. They organized themselves into 5 orderly queues that passed through the entire ancestral ruins. They walked consecutively towards the room. Veteran gamers were maintaining order at the sides of the queues. Those at the back, catch up. Go in 5 at a time. Don't let too many go in at the same time. The floor's not stable. If it collapses, it'll be disastrous. Open your eyes widely once you're inside. Whoever sees it will shout. A fully armored goblin with the words, "Elite First Beta Gamer," above his head said to the queuing goblins. Inside the queues, there were gamers who shouted out, "Make haste, make haste. Why does it take so long just to see a dragon? What the heck, are we still playing the game? I've waited in the queue for half an hour. My kid's finishing school. I have to go offline." Can I jump the queue? What does the dragon look like? Is it a 5-clawed dragon or one with 2 wings? That's so cool. Fancy discovering a dragon. How many things did the lousy game producers update secretly in the game? That's hilarious. The announcement for version 0.17 is coming out soon. I'll bet 100 bronze coins. Just take a glance and get a screen capture. Once you're offline, take your time to examine the picture. Oh my god. Selling equipment. Selling equipment. Is anyone employing coolies? I'm selling my labor. I can excavate, carry bricks, and do all daily missions. Dragon Raja Online Gaming is recruiting members. Wah, DMN, it's you again. Stop yelling. The gamers were very excited. Sherlock adjusted the surveillance images to follow the gamer's queue. He arrived quickly at the end of the queue. In the room, there was a gaping hole that would allow 6 to 7 goblins to jump in. There were small holes by the sides, and the room looked wobbly. 5 gamers from the queues would jump into the gaping hole. After 10 seconds, they would be thrown out. The gamers continuously queued up and jumped inside just to have a glance at this fantastical creature. Have you seen the dragon? Did you see it? When gamers were tossed back, the gamers at the side would question them. No, it's dark. I was grabbed after a few seconds inside and then thrown back. Is this a bug? Should be a boss or NPC that wasn't installed properly? Possible. This might be an airwall. You'll get repulsed after 10 seconds. Gosh, this lousy game has an airwall? This is a dungeon. Expect the unexpected. Sherlock adjusted his view and went through the bashed hole into the dark basement. A few gamers were thrown out, but they didn't affect Sherlock's surveillance. Sherlock's view advanced through the darkness until a claw appeared in his view and disrupted his surveillance. It's really a dragon. Lord Sherlock, by his looks, the dragon isn't old. Though it was pitch black, Brew seemed to be able to see everything. Indeed, I feel a need to have a conversation with the dragon. Sherlock stood up and made himself invisible. He arrived at the ancient ruins via the rune mana formation. He went through the main hall that was stacked with magical items. They were found by the gamers and submitted to Brew. Sherlock would take the items away when there weren't many gamers around. The anti-mana cloth used during this period could be wrapped around the dungeon core 10 times. He went through the labyrinth and arrived deep in the ancient ruins. He bypassed the gamers who were queuing up restlessly and gazed into the dark hole. The gamers couldn't feel it, but Sherlock could feel the aura of the dragon. Despite the overwhelming aura of the dragon, the gamers looked like it was normal. Normal underworld creatures and even high-level undead creatures like vampires would tremble at the aura. Seems like the creature that was troubling Lord Sherlock is actually a dragon. Did Lord Sherlock discover that it was a dragon? You were reluctant to enter and let the gamers enter instead? Bruce smiled as he asked. I didn't know it was a dragon. When the dragon came out, only then did I know. The aura of a dragon is hard to detect unless it's in close proximity. Sherlock shook his head as he jumped into the hole. At the same time, he exerted his dominant aura to prevent the gamers from leaping down. Then, he cast a simple silence and concealment spell to cover the entire hole. The gamers outside gathered since they couldn't understand why they weren't able to get close to the hole. They guessed that perhaps the sexy coder monkey was hot fixing the bug. Sherlock disregarded what the gamers were saying. He merely gazed into the dark space. A devil? Ha 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 ha. A loud, hoarse voice rang like drums in Sherlock's ears. Sherlock covered his ears and said, Dragon speech mana isn't used like this. Sherlock stepped forward, and a ring appeared where his leather shoes were. It was like a pebble dropping into a pool of water and creating ripples. He took a second step and new ripples formed at his feet. With Sherlock's stepping, the ripples emanated. The loud drum-like voice rang beside his ears. I didn't expect to meet a devil, especially a superior devil. Are you stealing the treasures of Helling Dragon? You've overestimated your capability? The voice wasn't a problem. As Sherlock's mana ripples emanated, the loud drum-like sounds became softer and more childlike. I am named the Dark Flaming Mana Lord, Dark Scorch Hot-Tempered Dragon, Guardian of Helling, Dragon of Eternal Seal, Master of Darkness and Harbinger of Hell. Leave my territory, naive devil. You'll be swallowed by my dark flames. If the voice wasn't childlike, the words would be rather imposing. But with the young voice, the feeling was different. Is the young underworld dragon that immature? Or rather, times have changed. Is his behavior caused by the education received while he was young? Brew asked as he tried to restrain his smile. No, at least the few dragons that I have encountered were normal. Sherlock shook his head and stopped walking. The ripples also faded. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Darkness faded from his location, and the original scene of the cave appeared. Before him was a dragon. Gray brick walls surrounded the empty room. The floor was removed, and a pit was excavated. The pit was full of items that shimmered, and a black dragon sat upon the shiny items. Sherlock wasn't afraid. He walked in front of the dragon and felt the dragon aura at close proximity. The lizard skull was lifted high up. Dark scales overlapped and protected the body of the black dragon. Even the weakest part, the eyelids, were covered with thick scales. The spikes on his back formed along his spine, and his long tail curled at his front. The 1.5-meter-long black dragon had sharp teeth and was full of vigor. The dragon lifted his head with difficulty to see the face of the tall Lord Sherlock. The dragon opened his mouth at Sherlock and revealed his 2 rows of razor-sharp teeth. Then, he let out a childlike roar. Ow! Sherlock searched his clothes for a while and took out some credentials. It was his archaeology credentials from Winterfell. He squatted down, held the credentials in front of the dragon's eye, and said, "I'm an employed archaeologist from the Winterfell Merchant Alliance, Sherlock. These are my credentials. This is Ancient Ruins number 85. You have trespassed into these ruins without approval and flouted the Underworld Ancient Ruins universal law. Who are your parents? I have to inform them. Apologies, it's my bad, Mr. Sherlock. Please don't do that." The black dragon lowered his head like a kid who had done something wrong. What's the meaning of Helling Dragon? Are you a descendant of the ancient empire of Helling? Sherlock asked as he put away his credentials. No, the legend sounds cool, so I hope to be like them. The black dragon lifted his head and showed his innocent face. Can you let me go? I'm only a kid. No, you're under arrest, the superior devil said. Chapter 124. Someone is taking the hits. In the dungeon core main hall, a young black dragon sat in the chair with his folded wings and his 2 claws placed on the table. His rear legs tried to touch the ground, but they were too short. He tried a few times discreetly but failed and gave up. Sherlock took a pen and some paper. In front of him was a magical table lamp that was aimed at the black dragon. Name: Dark Flaming Mana Lord, Dark Scorch Hot-Tempered Dragon, Guardian of Helling. Gender: the Dark Flaming Mana Lord has no gender, the young black dragon said with a childish voice. Age: I am the immortal, all-knowing, powerful dragon. If you don't cooperate, I'll call your parents. I understand. Sherlock concentrated on his writing for a while. Then, he took out his personal seal and read the contents of the paper out loud. According to the Underworld Ancient Ruins Universal Law, the punishment for trespassing in an ancient ruins is death. Please sign to confirm. Sherlock passed the paper to the young black dragon, who was full of astonishment. He looked at the paper, dazed. Underworld Supreme Court Verdict. Defendant: Egg Face. Age: 180 years old, considered an adult. Will be subjected to full criminal responsibility. Gender: androgyny. Crime: trespassing in private ancient ruins. Verdict: death sentence with immediate effect. Executor: Sherlock. Seal: Lord Sherlock. Wait for a moment. I'm not 180 years old, I'm only 2 years old. Why do I have to be subjected to criminal responsibility? Who's Egg Face? The young black dragon, Egg Face, shouted in panic. Sherlock took out an adamantine rock and infused it with mana. Soon, images and voices appeared from the rock. Age: I am the immortal, all-knowing, powerful dragon. Sherlock slammed down on the table and said, Good. Your crimes have been fully recorded. Next is the execution of your sentence. Wait a moment, I want to find my mom and dad. The young black dragon shouted nervously, but Sherlock didn't give him a chance to explain. The young black dragon wanted to escape, but a pair of hands had grasped his wings, like gripping a 1.5-meter chick in one's hand. The young black dragon emitted an anguished wail for rescue. If there was a huge dragon nearby, he would be able to hear it in an instant and would come for this pitiful 2-year-old black dragon. Unfortunately, within the vicinity of Eternal Kingdom, there was no chance a huge dragon was around. Sherlock used his leg to kick a wooden pail over. Then, he held the young black dragon above the pail and took out a knife. Get ready for the death sentence. Wait a moment. The young dragon continued to struggle and opened his mouth to breathe out flames. As he was too young and not fully matured, he was unable to breathe out any flames. There's nothing to wait for, you evil black dragon. There's only one way if you don't want to die. Sherlock held the dragon's wings with one hand while he took out a contract, the Eternal Kingdom Dungeon Interns Contract, Universal Version. Come. Drink some tea, egg face. Sherlock passed a cup of crimson bloody chrysanthemum tea warmly to the young black dragon who was sitting in a chair. This time he was more down to earth. He lowered his head, and his two claws were rubbing against each other. He looked aggrieved. His eyes glanced at the document in a briefcase at the side. The revealed corner of the document had the words, Eggface's start of internship. I'm not Eggface. I'm Dark Flaming Mana Lord, Dark Scorch Hot-Tempered, the black dragon said feebly. I know, Eggface, Sherlock said as he patted Eggface's shoulders. What's the meaning of Eggface? Are you insulting me? The black dragon opened his eyes wide as he looked resentfully at Sherlock. How can that be? I don't insult others. This is a compliment. In dragon terms, it means all-knowing and powerful dragon, Sherlock said casually. Impossible. I know how to say that using the dragon language. I've learned dragon speech and passed it. Next year, I can go to school. This is a dialect, my Eggface. Sherlock sat down and smiled at the black dragon. Yes, Eggface, let me explain your job. We require your help in mutating the Houndhead men. Yes, can you stand up? Yes, go to the dungeon core. Don't be afraid. I'm going to bring you in to play for a while, Sherlock said to Eggface as he brought the small dragon to brew. Eggface was full of terror. After standing for a few seconds, Sherlock said nicely to him, Good Eggface, come, I'm going to ask you some important questions. Sherlock looked at Eggface. Why did you trespass in the ancient ruins? I teleported in. Eggface replied without hesitation. The discussion forum was rife with the recent game events, and it exploded with posts and comments. Especially the posts about the contents that the game producers had secretly updated. Of course, Not Wearing Pants' post was one of them. Let us discuss the secret contents that were updated in the game these past few days. Hello everyone, I am Not Wearing Pants. Recently, many important events occurred in the game. Let us go through them one by one. 1. Firstly, it's the PvP mission, the calling of the Gladiator Arena, the start of the tournament. I don't have to elaborate more. My previous post has more details. As a reminder, if you encounter the 3 hamsters, talk to them and mention, Lord Sherlock, the dungeon lord who set up a dungeon. In this case, you will trigger their plot. It is considered an obvious strange encounter mission by the game producers. The rewards for this strange encounter mission are generous. There are equipment, reputation points, and coins. The following are the pictures of the hamsters. Big Boss, picture. Second Boss, picture. Fat Otaku, picture. Yes, they are the 3 hamsters. 2. Professions are available. I am honored to interview our first beta gamer goddess, veteran Raintia. Let us welcome her with a round of applause. The following are my interview recordings. Not Wearing Pants. Greetings, veteran Raintia. I am your fanboy. Raintia. E.H.W. opening parenthesis D.W. Not Wearing Pants. Good, let's go to the questions. How did you trigger Little Fairy's cultivation mission? Raintia. I didn't do anything. Not Wearing Pants. But only you are able to get close to Little Fairy, are you not? Raintia. I was only cultivating the flowers near Little Fairy so that the flowers would have a better chance of survival. If the flowers are far away, the plants will wilt faster. This is the rule that I discovered when cultivating the plants. Not Wearing Pants. I see. I am writing this down. Why did Little Fairy not spit saliva at you? Raintia. Actually, she spat saliva at me too, but later she didn't. Perhaps, I didn't talk to her. Every time you talk to her, she will spit saliva. I feel that the design of the NPC is to have us give her more space, instead of harassing her daily. That is what I feel. Not Wearing Pants. It's highly possible since Simba is also one of the NPCs who doesn't like to be disturbed. Raintia. Yes, I agree. This game is like a second life to us. Perhaps the NPCs are actually development team members? I feel that the NPCs aren't coded or simulated. Not wearing pants. Is it like the haunted houses that have a real cast? Ha ha ha. It's possible. I feel that it's a way for me to gauge future games. This is the first virtual reality online game. Not wearing pants. Good, thank you, Raintia Goddess. Did everyone remember? Don't harass little fairy. That was my interview. I feel that Raintia Goddess is correct. As this is a new virtual reality online game, we cannot use our outdated viewpoint to interact with the NPCs. I will do some tests along this line in the future. 3. It's the topic that everyone is concerned about. The dragon. I'm sure everyone is clear about that. I won't say more. I am going to discuss the events that happened after. We have follow-up information about the dragon. The dragon is staying in Eternal Kingdom. He just appeared in a hole. We are guessing that there are definitely plots and a storyline. Here are the pictures of the dragon. Picture. 4. Blacksmith skills. Those who are ugly have no chance. I am showing the face that will make Simba accept you as an apprentice. Try to imitate this face. Picture. As you can see, the game producers secretly updated a great deal of content. We shall wait patiently for the announcements. That will be all for today. Good night everyone. Just as Sherlock finished reading Not Wearing Pants post, Brew asked, Lord Sherlock, I am bothered by what the young black dragon said. He said that he was teleported in 2 days ago, but I'm sure you would be able to detect strange things immediately, right? Brew continued saying, that means that there are other creatures inside the ancient ruins. Sherlock squeezed his chin and said, I'm feeling uneasy. Forget it, the gamers will be the ones to take the hits. Let me update the game contents. Chapter 125. Version 0.17 update. Large scales reflected brilliance. Spikes populated the spine all the way to the tip of the tail. Huge dragon claws were tucked in at the stomach, and large teeth looked like sharp daggers. The commerce area of Eternal Kingdom was fully occupied by a large dragon. Its body length was 150 meters. The goblins' eyes lit up with strange sparks as they surrounded the large dragon. If Sherlock hadn't prohibited them from getting close to the huge dragon, they would have caressed the dragon, used their teeth to bite him, or stabbed him with a short sword. The huge dragon didn't know why the goblins weren't able to get close to him. He thought they were afraid of the dragon aura. You are such pathetic goblins. Do you want to be my underlings? I'm the eternal guardian of death, dark flaming Mana Lord, dark scorch hot-tempered dragon. This dungeon may be dilapidated, but I like it. I intend to create my Devil King's dragon lair. You goblins are suitable to be my underlings. Me. Choose me. I am 007. I'm the most hardworking. Whatever mission is no problem for me. I'm the brave one. As long as Eggface gives an order, I'll sacrifice everything for you. Can you assign me the mission first? I haven't prepared my meal. Veterans, we can't cross over. The goblins chatted wildly after they heard the black dragon's words. Eggface didn't understand what they meant, but seeing the excited goblins, he lifted his head and wanted to give a bellow and consolidate his prestigious position in Eternal Kingdom. Before Eggface bellowed, he saw a tall figure pushing the goblins aside in the crowd. The tall figure advanced towards him. It was a superior devil. The emotionless Sherlock walked through the crowd, which gave way to him. He walked towards the black dragon. He walked in front of the dragon as the dragon gazed at him maliciously. Give me some face, the black dragon said in a loud drum-like voice to Sherlock. Sherlock looked at the 150-meter-long huge dragon that occupied more than half of the commercial area that the gamers had painstakingly excavated. Sherlock walked forward. This time, Mana wasn't activated. The gamers shouted, plot animation. It's serious. Is Shirley fighting with the black dragon? I'm selling dark clay at the front row, fresh dark clay. Sherlock walked into the huge dragon's body. DMN. It's a bug. Come and take a look. It's hilarious. Shirley is going through the dragon. What the heck? Is this game? Dungeon. Bug. Is there a reward for exposing this bug? There's no submission page. How are you going to submit the bug? Expose this bug on the forum. Perhaps there will be a reward. As the gamers were bickering, Sherlock arrived at the black dragon's core. The 1.5-meter black dragon sat aggrieved on the ground. Sherlock grabbed the black dragon's wings from behind as though he was gripping a small chick. Sherlock didn't use his mana. To the gamers, the illusion created by Eggface's dragon speech mana was intact, but they couldn't see Sherlock because Sherlock was engulfed by the illusion. I'm the eternal guardian of death, dark flaming mana lord, dark scorch hot-tempered dragon. In front of Sherlock, the small black dragon lowered his head and spoke with a grievance. I know, Eggface. Sherlock lifted the small black dragon. With the help of the illusion, he went deep into the commerce area. But you can't change the game settings as you wish. I'll have problems explaining. Yes, this will be your temporary home. Sherlock threw Eggface into a small pit that had a goblin's bed. Then he asked, what else do you need? I need servants who will help me conquer the world, the best nail clippers, and a pile of shimmering treasure that I can sit on, Eggface said. Take a rest, Sherlock said gently and left. The dungeon didn't have day or night, but there was time. At 3 a.m., in the dark dungeon core main hall, the diligent devil lord Sherlock was busy working so that his adorable citizens could have blissful and carefree lives. Sherlock typed furiously on the keyboard. Dungeon. Eternal Kingdom, version 0.17 update log. Dungeon. Eternal Kingdom, version 0.17 official update. Amended the content that allowed the gamers to enter the hidden room in the ancient ruins. Now, gamers are unable to enter. Added new NPC, Black Dragon Eggface. The reincarnation mission The Way of the Houndhead Man and the related NPC. Please do not get near the dragon as it is highly dangerous. The black dragon that the gamers witnessed in the morning was a bug created by the technical team. I have removed the bug. The actual black dragon NPC will be introduced at a later date. Added new professions, cultivator, blacksmith, and others. Added new mission type, profession mission. Follow the mentor's instructions. There is no reward. It will hone the skills of the profession. Added new content, game as products. The gamers may DIY and be innovative within the limits of the law. Added new content, mana. The Underworld is a place filled with mana. After the update, gamers will have the chance to experience the existence of mana. Mana can be used with cultivation and blacksmithing. The amount of mana received varies according to race and reputation level. The same goes for mana recovery. The higher the reputation level, the greater the mana recovery rate. The race determines the upper limit for mana. Added optional content, mana limit increase. The mana limit varies according to race. The mana limit can be increased via enlightenment, meditation, and other training. The difficulty in increasing it is high, so don't have too much hope. This is optional content. Added possible bug, mana loss. If you discover that your mana is dry, don't panic. It is possible that Lord Sherlock used the mana in an emergency. Chapter 126. Crowd-funded chapter name. Sherlock's post attracted many passionate replies from the gamers. IC_Mizuki. This bug is too serious. Green Lantern Bitter Bamboo. Lousy game producers, come out to receive a beating. Meeting you at the deep end of my life, DIY? I want the Frostmourne, PY King. The commentator above is a Dota gamer. Nameless. What an update. Degree D degree. What the heck? Shouchalau. The update logs of other games remove bugs, but you are different. Interesting. Tune. I can foresee that when a gamer is forging a piece of epic level equipment, their mana will be gone. Ice-sealed Luokan. Hee. The resourceful veterans will come up with a method to increase the mana limit. Easterly breeze blows on the poplar by the militia. Within the limits of the law? Make a row of homemade mortars, then tie them together. It becomes a homemade 107 rocket launcher. Boo is obsessed with you. The previous commentator is 6666. Hemp rope technology. Just wait. I will try. Sherlock felt that the gamers were mostly pleased with the new updates, but he had some doubts. Sherlock was puzzled and asked, Brew, why are they still thinking of bombing my dungeon? They aren't going against you. If possible, they'll want to bomb Arad, Stormwind, and Orgrimmar. Brew was helpless, but he quickly said, Lord Sherlock, since you've officially introduced the concept of mana in the update, I feel that there is a need to put mana skills in the schedule. Mana skills? I'm able to provide a mana pool for the gamer's use, but mana skills. Sherlock spread out his hands and said, Are you expecting me to spend money to buy a lot of runes and then carve them on their bodies so that they can shoot out fireballs? I've considered the runes, but the cost is too high. Hasn't Lord Sherlock thought about dragon speech mana skills? Brew asked. Sherlock pondered for a while and replied, have you duplicated Eggface's dragon speech mana skills? That small dragon didn't have any spiritual defense. After leaving the protection of huge dragons, it's not difficult to enter his mind and duplicate the dragon speech mana skills. The gamers won't be able to use the dragon speech mana skills directly. Coincidentally, the Mandarin language of the Otherworld is quite similar to the dragon speech, which has mana potential. Of course, we'll have to refine the language and mana. Using the Mandarin language will result in a weaker manifestation of the dragon speech mana skills, but it's a good replacement for the lengthy training of mana skills. Brew said, the gamers only need to come to me for the duplication of the dragon speech mana skills incantation and memorize the corresponding Mandarin incantation. Then the gamers can use Lord Sherlock's mana to execute mana skills. This is a convenient method. Most importantly, the huge dragons won't be able to understand and discover that we've stolen the dragon speech mana skills and come after us. The Otherworld is more powerful than I thought. How many dragon speech mana skills does the little dragon have? He's only 2 years old, so I don't think he knows a lot. Sherlock asked. He doesn't know many, only 100 different dragon speech mana skills, but for the gamers, they will be sufficient. On this basis, we can create a skills diagram, skill titles, and put a description on the forum. We can add damage values and mana usage to help the gamers understand better. This sounds good. Sherlock nodded. I believe that with mana skills as a new skill set, it will propel the dungeon to the next level of construction. Actually, I'm quite satisfied with their construction progress. Sherlock pondered deeply. Then he said, what you've said makes sense. If I can stimulate them to work harder, why not? Just a few seconds ago, I had a concept for them to work even harder. Did Lord Sherlock have another excellent strategy? Brew asked. Sherlock stood up, and one of his hands moved as though he was drawing a diagram. To create the feel of a game, there must be a ritual. Let them work hard and complete the missions to obtain more reputation points that they can use to buy mana skills. You may create a mana skills list with different categories. Put in the reputation level and reputation points requirements. You are indeed very smart, Lord Sherlock. Brew complimented. But there's another problem, Lord Sherlock. What's the problem? Because of the young dragon, once I translate the duplicated dragon speech mana incantations, there's a bit. Brew hesitated for a while, then he gave up and said, I think it's better for Lord Sherlock to take a look. A row of words appeared above the dungeon core. The hidden wind fairy in the air, hark my summoning and come to my side. Fragments of the Nightmare King, liberate the world's prohibition. The black, frozen, and formless blade shall merge with my power and body to destroy the godly spirits. The key of hidden dark powers. Show me your true power. Between our contract, I command you to destroy the seal. Disintegrate, reality, blossom, synapse. Banish this world. Sherlock was silent for a while. Then he said, these are what the dragon created as dragon speech mana skills. From the incantation style, that is so. The more than 100 dragon speech mana skills have a similar style. Brew sounded helpless. Will the gamers be able to accept this? Sherlock sounded awkward. Considering their preferences, it shouldn't be a big problem. Brew sounded uncertain. Sherlock nodded and said, we try it out on a gamer. Peasant stood in front of the dungeon core. He was excavating in the ancestral ruins and had almost upgraded his reputation level to become a gnome, but a mission notice gave him a shock. Hidden mission. The way of the mana skills. Mission description. You have been awarded mana skills while working hard. Proceed to the Dungeon Lord main hall and listen to Lord Sherlock's suggestion. Mission reward. You will learn a mana skill. Peasant was full of hope as he stood at the dungeon core main hall. Brew duplicated a dragon speech mana skill in Peasant's mind. The hidden wind fairy in the air, hark my summoning and come to my side. It was Peasant's first time learning a mana skill. He followed Brew's instructions and used his Otherworld's common language to execute the variant dragon speech mana skill. The wind fairy hidden in the air, hearken my summoning and cometh to my side. Chapter 127. The Way of the Gnome. Peasant opened both his hands. After shouting the incantation, he held his breath. Faint mana wisps appeared from his hands. He couldn't believe his eyes. Though he had adjusted the pain threshold to the lowest setting, he could feel the sensation of mana gathering in his hands. It was like the hand feeling the wind when he was traveling at 60 kilometers per hour. He yearned for this kind of feeling. Peasant's gaze was firm. Though he was only a goblin, he could foresee that he would be the greatest magician in the Eternal Kingdom. He raised both his hands. The magical wind created by mana protected his body. It feels like being blown by 3 electric fans, a gamer said as he extended his hand to sense the magical wind circulating around Peasant. Gosh, that's cooling. It feels good. Yes, it is. Once a gamer felt the wind, the rest of the gamers also tried feeling the winds. But the gamers weren't satisfied since the magical wind disappeared after a few minutes. The gamers asked Peasant to try again. He started to chant the incantation, and a magical wind appeared once again. The gamers happily felt the wind with their hands. Sherlock stood inside the dungeon core main hall and watched the gamers queuing up to feel the magical wind created by Peasant. "What are they doing?" Sherlock asked. He was bewildered as he observed the excited gamers. "They seem to be driving, but I don't have proof," Bruce said with regrets. "Is the transformed dragon speech mana skill abnormal? Isn't it a bit weak?" Sherlock asked. Brew replied, This may be due to the language. I followed the template of Mandarin as the basis. If he speaks Mandarin, the effect will be better. Then add a few more templates. Use my mana and the dragon speech mana variant. If they can only use such feeble mana skills, it's going to be a waste. Though we're using the dragon speech mana to stimulate their diligence, wasting an opportunity isn't my style." Sherlock wore his windbreaker and made himself invisible. Then, he walked to the rune mana formation. "Take good care of the dungeon, Brew. I'm selling a batch of magical items from the ancient ruins." Dark night fell gradually upon the Eternal Kingdom. To know the time, besides looking at the clock, one could observe when the gamers went offline. When almost half the gamers went offline, it was an indication that night had fallen. Even if there were 2,100 goblins working in Eternal Kingdom, not many gamers witnessed what the dungeon looked like at 1 a.m. Simba extinguished the fire in the magic furnace and stored his tools properly. He then took a bundle of books and went back to his little house after locking up the blacksmith shop. He met his cousin Mufasa along the way. The exhausted Mufasa greeted Simba and went back to sleep. Simba didn't blame Mufasa because they were working very hard during this period of time. Normally, Simba would want to go back and sleep, but today, the situation was special. Simba didn't sleep the moment he returned to his room. He sat in a chair and put the bundle of books on the table. He lit a magical lamp and pulled it closer. Simba touched the book cover with his rough fingers as he smiled contentedly. He took out a pen, flipped open his journal, and started writing. Blacksmith Beginner's Examination, total score 100 points. Examiner: Simba. Exam Candidate: Sealhead Ling Chong. 1. Write down the second detail of the third step of forging, 10 points. Answer: Increase the flame in the magic furnace and control the infusion of mana. Forge and hit at the special location using the mind's thought and the indication on the furnace. Simba marked the examination scripts and thought about his interaction with his students. Though they were goblins, they were adorable in their own ways. To observe the smelting in detail, the goblins put their heads into the furnace. To forge with the fastest speed, the goblins didn't have the chance to grab tongs, so they used their hands to grab the red-hot pieces of metal. To forge the highest quality sword template, the goblins used their fingers to pick out the impurities even though their fingers would add more impurities. Simba recalled fondly and smiled contentedly. Before long, he had finished marking all the examination scripts. Simba looked at all the books that were drawn with zeros. He decided to improve his syllabus 10 times. He wanted to improve their memory skills and do spot checks. Dictation of the blacksmithing process and doing examination scripts were also to be emphasized. Simba went to his bed and closed his eyes serenely. He was thinking of buying the book, 3 years of forging and 5 years of simulation, for them to do their homework tomorrow. Humph! Little Fairy hugged her arms and turned her head away. She passed a bag to the slender goblin in front of her. I'm not rewarding you because you're a fast learner. Don't be mistaken. Though it was late at night, she was still enthusiastically mentoring the weak-looking goblin reindeer. Choose a seed from the bag. These are my precious seeds. The underworld fools don't understand the power of these seeds. Though I'm a slave, humph, I don't want to share my experience. I'm going to sleep, little fairy said halfway and abruptly left in a huff. Raintia was left with a bag of seeds in her hands. Little fairy went back to her bed and shouted, "Don't take the whole bag of seeds. Choose one seed and return the bag to me." Raintia looked dazed at the bag in her hands and chose a seed. Then she closed the bag carefully and returned it to Little Fairy before walking to the flower bed. She looked for a good spot to plant this tiny seed. Raintia lifted both her hands and aimed at the seed location. White mana infused into the soil, and the seed received the mana infusion to grow. It gradually quivered in the soil. On the discussion forum, Peasant received a hidden mission all of a sudden and learned a mana skill. As his Mandarin was unintelligible, the power of the mana skill was greatly diminished. Because of Peasant, a post titled, "Mana Skill Notice," appeared on the discussion forum. The game development team was testing the stability of the mana skill system. They intended to test it for 2 days before making the mana skill system official. The game development team also solicited feedback from the forum members. Though mana skills weren't officially launched in the game, a strange phenomenon occurred in Eternal Kingdom over the past few days. Gather, Mandarin classes, professional Mandarin tutor, proof of examination certificate with excellent a grade in the forum, 100 bronze coins per gamer for a class duration of 60 minutes. Those who want to become a magician, don't miss the classes. The mana skill system is about to be launched, a goblin shouted in the training ground plaza. Simultaneously, a group of goblins carried bricks while they recited, Big Bro carried a basket over a wide drain. As he crossed over the wide drain, he saw a strange dog and knocked over his melon basket. The melons fell out, and Big Bro blamed the dog. The game's passion for learning Mandarin reached a new peak. Even those gamers who were battling in the spider's lair practiced their Mandarin while fighting the monsters. As for Spectre College, none of the gamers entered the instance dungeon for 10 days. Because reputation points would be deducted if the team was annihilated, everyone was trying to accumulate reputation points and change their race to a gnome. In the ancestral ruins, Arthur threw the last magical item into the rune mana formation and exchanged it for reputation points and game currency. His reputation level was finally right behind Raintia's, and he became the second gamer to attain reputation level 5. He immediately received a mission, The Way of the Gnome. Chapter 128, My Comrades. Those green hands were covered by thick layers of dust due to long periods of carrying bricks. There were 400 to 500 similar goblins. A 1.5 meter long small black dragon sprawled at his cave entrance. The 2 claws were clasped on the rock walls, and he revealed half his face as he observed the surroundings discreetly. His small tail was swinging excitedly as though he had seen something interesting. As the great eternal guardian of death, dark flaming mana lord, the dark scorch hot-tempered dragon was warned by the evil superior devil. Don't use your dragon speech mana to create illusions. Otherwise, I'll forfeit your chance for corrective labor and execute you immediately. The superior devil wasn't joking. Eggface saw that he was serious from his gaze. Eggface couldn't help quivering his rounded body when he thought about the terrible devil. Eggface was prohibited from using his dragon speech mana, so his plan to subjugate the weak goblins as his servants was dashed. But he had an alternative plan, which was to use his dragon aura to attract the goblins. He was going to tell them that there was a terrifying huge dragon at this location. Ow! Eggface instinctively opened his mouth and made a soundless wail. Then, he extended his dragon aura to engulf the heads of the vulnerable goblins. After carrying these bricks, my reputation level will upgrade to level 2. What, you're leveling up that fast? I worked for half a month. My hair's getting bald. The goblin pointed at his bald green head and shouted. Eggface frowned. This goblin wasn't honest. He didn't have any hair at all. Why did the goblins not kneel down in fear? Eggface tried to boost his dragon aura. 30 minutes later, a small black dragon sat on the ground and leaned on his bed. His rear legs were sprawled on the ground listlessly. He wanted to place his front legs on the rear legs, but they were too short. Even if he curled up his soft white belly, he couldn't do that. He shrugged as tears of grievance welled in his eyes. As a black dragon, he couldn't even intimidate a few hundred goblins. The goblins were chatting jovially even when he was exerting his dragon aura. After excavating the diamond seam, they would pick up fallen clay and eat like nothing had happened. Dragon aura? They didn't even fart. As Eggface was despondent, a figure appeared before him. It was a lich. Eggface lifted his head and watched the lich. Then, he lowered his head and said, "I'm eternal guardian of death, dark flaming monolord, dark scorch hot-tempered." "Eggface, is that correct? Can I address you like that?" the lich asked politely as he looked at Eggface. He was a black dragon and a pretty young one. Only a superior devil could be insolent to a black dragon. Powerful, all-knowing dragon. Eggface finally finished reciting his script. "Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Brainiac, the Lich of Eternal Kingdom. I'm your colleague." "Nice to meet you," Brainiac said politely. "I was asked by Lord Sherlock to talk with Lord Eggface in regards to the mutation of the Houndhead Man." The goblin Arthur looked at Brew as he submitted his reincarnation mission. The Way of the Gnome. Mission description. Lord Sherlock intends to recruit some gnomes as his servants. Perhaps you're a good choice? Before that, you have to prove yourself and your loyalty. Mission objective. Paid silver coins. 10 out of 10. Carried bricks 24/24 of an hour. Compliment Lord Sherlock on the discussion forum 1/1. Mission reward. Become a gnome. Warrior of Eternal Kingdom. After completing this mission, Arthur felt emotionally drained. Thank goodness. Everything was smooth sailing. Arthur inhaled. After the mission submission, a system notice appeared before him. "Congratulations on the completion of your mission and on obtaining gnome qualification. You can choose to reincarnate now or in the future. The reincarnation chance will be kept for you. After reincarnation, all equipment will be converted to game currency and returned to the gamer. The soulbound legendary equipment can be reforged at the blacksmith shop. Please note, legendary equipment might have a shorter length after reforging. The missing portion will be refunded in game currency, and that is to be determined officially. Choose whether you are reincarnating." Arthur chose to reincarnate. Then, he walked into the dungeon core. Behind him were a group of gamers who gathered to watch. There weren't many gamers since Arthur chose to reincarnate at 5 a.m. That was the time with the least number of gamers. Even with a highly popular game such as Dungeon Eternal Kingdom, there were only 400 to 500 gamers on at 5 a.m. Most of them gathered to watch Arthur reincarnate. "Okay, I'm prepared to take the screenshots." Not Wearing Pants was standing by the side, and Peasant, who was at the other side, gave an OK hand sign. Not Wearing Pants intended to record the entire process of Arthur's reincarnation and then post it on the forum. Moros, who had woken up early, stood at the steps to the carpenter workshop. He was holding a bowl of hot clay and asked Mufasa, who was firing the clay, "What are they doing? Religious ritual? I'm not sure, but they'll come over to eat once they're done." Mufasa sounded hopeless. His eyes were as black as the dark caves. Moros turned his head and asked casually, "You can emulate your cousin and mentor disciples. See how relaxed your cousin is. Last night, I saw him coughing blood." Mufasa was taken aback. He thought carefully and said, I'm not good at interacting with the goblins." "No problem. They're not goblins, they're mad creatures." Moros laughed heartily. After finishing his clay, he put the bowl back and returned to prepare his training tasks for the day. As usual, there would be a long queue of goblins waiting for training. He didn't manage to put down the bowl, which fell to the ground and made a thud. Mufasa was stunned and looked at Moros. "Look over there," Moros shouted excitedly at Mufasa. "My comrade, that gnome, did you see that? The one that's a head higher than the goblins." Moros looked at the gnome and was about to approach him when green words appear above his head. Moros stopped in his tracks. Holy cow. Chapter 129. Novice Dragonborn's Ambition. A black hammer hit a short sword template. Quang dang. Sparks flew out, bellows hummed, and goblins shouted in the background. Quang dang. Another hammer smashed down and broke the sword template. A goblin picked up his broken sword template. He looked stunned. Pele Wong was above his head. Looking at his weak body, he didn't have the imposing aura of his name. Tens of goblins like him were queuing behind. "The mana infusion's too much. Aren't you tired using that much mana? Next." Simba shouted and beckoned Pele Wong to go to the back. The next goblin was the excited Take a Spear hit. He moved forward and took over Pelawang's hammer. Then, he selected the metal materials before adjusting the magic furnace's temperature. The magic furnace suddenly extinguished. Simba was shocked when he saw the extinguished magic furnace, and he asked, "How much mana did you infuse?" No, I haven't started infusing mana yet." Take a spearhead was taken aback. Simba thought for a while and said, "The furnace is most likely broken. Let me fix it. All of you, stop queuing." The gamers who queued up to learn forging went away. "No, coach, let me have another chance. This time, I'll make it good. Coach, believe me." Another gamer came up behind Take a spearhead, grasped his throat, and covered his mouth. After controlling Take a spearhead, he said softly, "Shush, why are you shouting? Don't you want your equipment? Come out quickly, come out quickly." A group of gamers dragged Take a spearhead out. Take a spearhead made muffled noises, and his eyes were full of tears. 10 minutes later. That's frustrating. I've bathed and fasted for a day. I even polished my leather shoes like a mirror and offered 10 years of my classmates' lives in my prayers. Then I went into the gaming capsule, thinking I could make it with a hammer strike and become the blacksmith's apprentice. Why is that so difficult? I thought I had succeeded, but the magic furnace had to break down. Why did the lousy furnace have to break down? At a location near to the blacksmith shop, Take a spearhead punched the stone slabs on the ground in frustration. At his side were two goblins, Sealhead Ling Chong, who was wearing underpants, and Dragonborn, who had a breastplate, a small round shield, and a short sword. Try again next time. Simba will recruit more apprentices in the next few days. Sealhead Ling Chong consoled Take a spearhead. Take a spearhead was full of regrets as he looked at Sealhead Ling Chong and said, "Shut your seal mouth. You were selected based on your looks. I queued up for a few days before it was my turn. It must be you who caused the magic furnace to break. Tisk, tisk, you're incapable. How can you malign me? I didn't do anything." I'm puzzled too. Both of them were about to bicker when Dragonborn lifted his hand and said, "Enough, stop quarreling. The two of you have been carrying bricks for 2 days. Do you have money? Why don't you buy some equipment?" Dragonborn showed off his equipment. "Oh, shut up, you're a lucky dude. Fancy being chosen to participate in a gladiator fight with the veterans. I'm staying away from you." Take a spearhead shouted and nibbled his finger. Dragonborn looked embarrassed, and he didn't know how to reply to him. Sealhead Ling Chong grabbed Take a spearhead's throat. But Take a spearhead managed to free himself of the throat lock, and both of them wrestled with each other. Dragonborn saw that they didn't have weapons, so he didn't bother with them. Give way, I've succeeded. The goblin hemp rope technology, whose name had the word Pioneer beside it, walked excitedly past Dragonborn and towards the two gnomes in front. That was correct, 2 gnomes. Dragonborn looked at the nearby gnomes, who had superior equipment. They were not wearing pants and Arthur. They were the elites among the veteran gamers and the first 2 gamers who converted to gnomes. The first gnome was Arthur, and not wearing pants was the second. Gnomes were much taller than goblins, though they had the same colored skin. Looking at the figure and flesh, gnomes were far superior to goblins. As such, no matter where they went, gamers would gather and take screenshots of them. Dragonborn looked at them from afar and gazed at Sealhead Ling Chong and Take a spearhead who had stopped fighting. He asked them, "Isn't there a tournament? If we meet Arthur's team during the tournament, do we have a chance to win?" "You must have 5 gamers in a team," Take a spearhead said firmly. "Fight Arthur? Stop dreaming. He's a rich gamer with superior equipment. Does the PvP require 5 gamers in a team?" Sealhead Ling Chong asked a practical question. "I'm not sure, but when I was doing the arena mission, there were 5 gamers in a team." Dragonborn recalled something and said, "The veteran gamers are powerful. They used a shield and knocked me unsteady. They then stabbed me to death without hesitation. Frankly speaking, it's my first time experiencing such a pathetic defeat." "Nonsense. Didn't you visit the forum? You're not able to understand what the veterans have gone through," Take a spearhead said in exaggeration. "Do you know Kramer? He was the most powerful leader of the Houndhead men. And the Void leader who's called Bacon something. I can't recall his name. The veterans fought with him before. I can feel their power by looking at the posts." Dragonborn nodded and remained silent. "Let's go, Let's go and carry bricks. I'll reach reputation level 2 soon. Then I'll train like mad, kill spiders, improve my equipment, and reach the pinnacle of my life. Sealhead Ling Chong said as Take a Spearhead commented, yes, do you intend to learn close combat or mana skills? The lousy game producers put up a notice. Veteran peasant learned mana skills. When will the skills be available to us? A large group of gamers was searching the ancient ruins for treasures. There weren't many treasures left as many gamers had searched for long periods of time. Only the floor tiles weren't completely dismantled. The gamers were, in fact, diligent, but there were simply too many floor tiles. As the gamers were focused on prying the floor tiles, a gamer suddenly shouted, I've made a discovery. Take a look, chapter 130 to 818 in guilds. A rock wall was severely damaged. Vines crept out from the cracks and intertwined with each other. They propagated along the wall with a stubborn survival instinct. Dong, dong, dong. A series of footsteps reverberated in the room. Some goblins squatted and sprawled on the ground, while others searched along the walls. Wherever the goblins gathered, there would be chatting. I see. Yes, my sister says she can't marry such a guy. But she's carrying his child, so she intends to meet his parents tomorrow and get married soon. Selling coins, handmade bronze coins. Who posted, in love with whose bed? Accusing me of being a thief? Is the gamer brainless? If I stole, how could I still have my Eternal Kingdom account? Buying bronze coins at low prices to complete gnome mission. If you have bronze coins, sell them to me immediately. You can advertise on the forum too. There's a cheat. Take a look at the signboard. Hack him to death if anyone sees him again. He cheated me of 200 yuan. The signboard had the words, threesome self-pleasuring sh*t. DMN. I don't recognize any of the words except sh*t. Can you stop using those words? My enjoyment of this fantastical game is being spoiled by you. Wah, a golden legend. I can't believe it. Selling clay, selling clay. Anyone interested in buying? A group of goblins chatted noisily while searching in a huge room. The room had been searched before, but due to some reasons, the gamers gathered here and began searching. There were bones, rocks, and pits in the room. The bones were collected by the gamers since they could exchange them for reputation points and could be made into bones backpacks at Mufusa's carpenter workshop. Sometimes, they would see Mufasa throw the bones into the cauldron to cook. The reason the gamers gathered in that particular room was the random discovery of a mission item. It was a book that was underneath a stone slab. The dirty and dusty book was empty, but there were some legible words, Mana Skills Book. Gamers who were familiar with detective work said, according to my many years of detective work, the book was soiled 2 days ago. The words were written 2 days ago. Nobody knew whether detective work was effective in the game, but some took it as a lead. Perhaps some creature had trespassed in the ancestral ruins? The backstory of the ancestral ruins was such that the Void Legion invaded the location and wanted to raid the treasures. As such, the gamers were sent in to protect the treasures. The gamers didn't encounter any of the Void Legion, though, at least not like the skeletons encountered at Spectre College. A gamer said jovially, I'm not sure whether the Void Legion invaded here, but we've emptied the ancestral ruins. Initially, if the item was taken away discreetly, the matter would have ended. However, the matter was blown out of proportion because of a popular post on the forum. A gamer, Leather Bear, made a post on the forum. 818-1 Dragon Raja official announcement. Exposing the evil deeds of the Meat Vegetable Rice Alliance Guild. I'm a promoter for the Dragon Raja Guild. My game ID and forum ID is Leather Bear. I am publishing this 818 post to expose the guild, Meat Vegetable Rice Alliance, which has numerous forum members. The guild has committed evil deeds in the game. Our guild chairman BT Kangren bought a mission item called the Mana Skills Book with 10,000 renminbi from a gamer yesterday and accepted the mission. There is a picture below. Picture. Mission title. Source. Lost Mana Skills. Mission description. A long time ago, citizens of Eternal Kingdom forgot how to use mana skills. This precious mana skills book found in the ancestral ruins can help us get back the lost craft of mana skills. Mission objective. Hand over the book to Lord Sherlock as soon as possible. Mission reward. The gamer who completes this mission will learn a basic mana skill. After peasant, This is the first mission that will allow a gamer to learn a mana skill, as well as a possible plot development. Because the game environment has been quite safe, our chairman only brought 5 gamers to submit the mana skills book to the dungeon lord. However, a group of gamers came out and robbed the chairman. Chairman Stir-Fried Vegetable Rice of the Meat Vegetable Rice Alliance brought his gamers to rob and kill our chairman. Below are the evidential screenshots. Picture, picture, picture. I don't want to say much except that we were taken advantage of. I believe there is divine justice. If you wish to fight, we, the Dragon Raja, will oblige. Today, we declare war. We've applied for registration of our guild. I hope that it will be approved soon. If any gamers have the words, Meat Vegetable Rice Alliance, below their names and are seen outside the dungeon, they will be killed. Unless they stay in the dungeon forever and carry bricks. Our chairman is feeling chest pain from anger. With such a vindictive post, many gamers replied. White blue sky. Melon seeds, mineral water, beer, champagne, cigarettes, and 8 treasure kanji. Hey, stick up your buttocks. Got up from a fall. What? The only item for learning mana skills is only worth 10,000 renminbi? Does your chairman know mathematics? How would you feel if our chairman bought the item with 10,000 yuan? After cheating our guild member, we only killed you once, we have given you enough face. I am from Meat Vegetable Rice Alliance. If you have the guts, don't let me out of the dungeon safety zone. Seafood shaved ice. I am seated in the front watching the show and eating melon seeds. Only eat orange skin. A deal is done once the money is handed over. Is that a crime? Is there justice when you rob and kill? Ask Void Priest. That is cheating. Your chairman, BT Kangren, is a big cheat. Bullying other gamers is a crime. Not wearing pants. When will your guild be approved? I applied over 10 days ago, but it hasn't been approved, and there are no responses from the forum administrator. At Lord Sherlock, Red Light District _Prince. Don't bother, veteran. Shirley was asking for suggestions of good games yesterday. It seems like he's sick of Tropico. I recommended SimCity for around half a month, so he won't reply anytime soon. Winter Night Mulberry. I recommended the Sunny and Lovely Dark Souls series. Sherlock hugged his arms and cracked the melon worm, which was a tasty fried tidbit. The outer shell had to be removed, and the flesh tasted like chicken. I merely installed a mission item in order for the mana skills plot to develop. Why are they fighting? Sherlock asked as he browsed the forum. It has been a month since the second beta test started. It's normal for the ambitious, rich gamers to create guilds to enjoy the position of power. Like what we discussed previously, the conflicts between guilds are unavoidable. With the PvP system, it can help the game develop in a positive and competitive way. The war of words and minor bickering are not important, Brew replied quickly. As long as they carry bricks diligently. Sherlock nodded his head and shut down the post containing the war of words between the two guilds. Then he created a new post. Is the Dark Souls series good? Chapter 131. Shipping goods. The variant dragon speech mana skills suitable for the gamers were completed after Brew worked overtime. The dragon speech mana skills duplicated from Eggface were able to be used by the gamers when they spoke the Otherworld's Mandarin. To facilitate more gamers, more than 100 Otherworld's dialect templates were added. If the gamers spoke dialects that corresponded to the 100 dialect templates, the original power of the dragon speech mana would be intact. The following was a summary. Do you want mana skills? Use reputation points and coins for your desired mana skills. Mana skills require a corresponding reputation level. The higher the level of the mana skill, the greater the mana required. For an explanation of mana, refer to the previous post. Dragon speech mana skills were complex mana skills. If Sherlock were to go into the details, he wouldn't have the chance to play computer games for an entire day. So Sherlock spent 10 minutes and explained everything in a few hundred easy-to-understand words. He also listed out the various mana skills that the goblins were able to use given their mana limit due to their race. The effects of the mana skills, and details on how to execute them, weren't explained. When Sherlock published the new game settings, the forum gamers and members complimented Sherlock. Sherlock was relieved to see everybody content. He closed the pages of the discussion forum. Dark Souls activated. Sherlock was busy playing Dark Souls to help in the future development of Eternal Kingdom. After the gamers had complimented the implementation of the monoskills, they started racking their brains to research the dragon speech monoskills and published many research posts. OTZ. With regards to dialect, I wonder if body language improves the power of the monoskills or effects. Pele Wong. The future of monoskills is assistive monoskills. Taking jujube pills. The magician sewer's profession is like the short bow. There is no future. There were many similar posts on the forum. Whatever they were, they had only just embarked on their monoskills journey. 30 days later, two liches stood in a daze on the command platform. The goblins hadn't challenged them for 30 days. A lich placed his skeleton hand on the crystal ball and asked, "Teacher, can we come down? It has been 30 days since any goblins turned up. I need to relieve myself. Are you sure? I'll arrange for the next team to replace you. You'll continue to queue for your graduation." A gentle voice came out from the crystal ball. "There's no need. I've held myself back. In the meeting room of the Spectre College. Palm. This matter is serious. If the other party doesn't fulfill their contractual obligation, we should sue them. My students have been standing inside the examination site for 30 days. They aren't able to eat, sleep, relieve themselves properly, or keep themselves warm. Principal, that is too much." An angry lich stood up and complained loudly. At the far end of the table, a lich in a western suit said, "Professor Cabbage, I can understand your frustration. Professor Bacon is responsible for this matter. What has it got to do with me?" Professor Cabbage cast a furious look at Professor Bacon, who was seated opposite to her. Bacon crossed his arms and placed them on the table as he muttered, "I personally believe in Lord Sherlock. He's a rich, just, gentlemanly, and generous superior devil. The tour period of the goblins is a bit long. From their perspective, it's justifiable for them to tour for 180 years. Bacon saw that Professor Cabbage was about to rebuke and he quickly said, "Of course, I can fully understand the concerns of Madam Cabbage. This matter has dragged on for too long. I shall make a personal trip to resolve the issue." Good. Let us applaud Professor Bacon to give him moral support. The principal clapped his hands, and the clapping in the room lasted for a long time. Is this the last batch of magical items? Sherlock looked at the small pile of magical items and asked. "It should be the last batch, Lord Sherlock," Bruce said. Brainiac confirmed that there are no more magical items in the ruins. "But, we haven't found the strange creatures." "I understand." Sherlock nodded and took out an anti-mana cloth and wrapped it around the magical items. Crimson magical lamps illuminated the night sky. A newspaper was placed serenely on the ground. A breeze blew across. The newspaper fluttered in the wind and made flapping sounds. Hee-haw. A gnome with permed hair rode on a bird that darted rapidly along the empty streets. He overtook many birds along the way. The bird racing gang always frequented this place at midnight. A devil dragged a huge black chest along the street. The coffee-colored goatskin boots and the wet road surface became a prominent contrast. The dark-plated western pants were at ankle length and had a black belt lifting them. The alternating black and white houndstooth upper garment appeared low profile but had a rich British style. The white shirt and black jacket, which was made of high-quality suede, exuded a dignified yet classical aura. The hair of this well-dressed devil was neatly combed. Scattered dust floated over to the devil. He lifted his palm, and the dust was blocked by an invisible wall. The dust stopped at a distance of 30 centimeters from him. When he left, the dust dispersed in the air. "Lord Sherlock, I don't understand why you dress this way when you sell those magical items." Bruce's voice was heard by Sherlock's ears. "A destitute devil cannot fetch a high price for his goods. A well-dressed one can turn his trash into treasures." Sherlock dragged his chest to a black alley. When he ensured there were no creatures around, he turned and walked inside. The sounds of the heavy dragging of the chest were heard from the black alley. An orc sitting on the ground was wearing a tattered shirt. His face had patches of black and green, and he had a body odor that reeked of a creature that hadn't bathed for tens of days. The orc lifted his head as Sherlock came over. He was fearful and greedy as he gazed at Sherlock. "A pleasant night." Sherlock stopped in front of the orc. "Did you bring that?" The orc was full of yearning. "Of course. Is this the place for today?" Sherlock surveyed the surroundings. Then he lowered his head to gaze at the orc and said, "Compared to the last time, this environment is terrible. The security is tight. We have a mole within us. The security is able to wean off some information every time." The orc's yearning became more intense, and blood veins appeared in his eyes. "I see." Sherlock took out an adamantine ball from his chest and threw it into the orc's hand. He left without looking back. The orc was like a lost creature dying of thirst in the desert and discovering a spring. Mucus and saliva dripped down as he caught hold of the adamantine ball. He sniffed greedily. Sherlock shook his head and muttered to himself, "Such a decadent creature." He arrived at the end of the black alley and saw a locked metal door. A gray statue was placed at the side. It was a female gnome statue in a suggestive pose. It looked like it was abandoned. Sherlock walked to the statue and placed the chest in front of it. The statue opened her eyes and scrutinized Sherlock before saying, "Positive remainder, remainders positive, symbols alike. Remainder with remainder, positive and positive, symbols vary." After listening to Sherlock's reply, the statue stood up and climbed down carefully from the rock that she once stood on. Then, she took out a key and opened the metal door. Sherlock nodded at the gnome statue and walked inside. The gnome statue closed the metal door carefully and locked the door. The statue took out a magical welding torch and a welding mask. She put the welding mask on her face and aimed the torch at the door seam. There were bright sparks and sizzling sounds. Afterward, the metal door was welded shut permanently. Chapter 132. Version 0.18 Update Log. In a brightly lit room there was a stark contrast to the dark alley outside. A succubus who had a feather mask and high heels walked with clicking sounds towards Sherlock. She had a faint perfume fragrance about her. She surveyed Sherlock with interest. Then she asked, "Are you new here?" "No, I have an appointment," Sherlock said politely as he backed up to maintain a discreet distance from the succubus. The succubus leaned forwards gently as her red lips opened slightly. "The first time is free, especially for such a handsome superior devil like you. I'll teach you lots of new, ledge." Sherlock lifted his brow and levitated a cane out of nowhere. The handle of the cane restrained the succubus who was getting close. "I shouldn't decline such an invitation from an alluring lady like you. Apologies, I'm not interested in your knowledge. Besides, I'm rather busy," Sherlock said gently and turned his body to give way. Then, he made a gentlemanly gesture for her to leave. The succubus was full of regrets, but she left reluctantly. Sherlock walked through the room and an aisle before arriving at a circular main hall. Graceful music reverberated in the circular main hall. Sherlock looked at the performing band. A classical piano was placed at a corner, and a sludge monster without hands was sitting in front of it. He closed his eyes and indulged in playing. A gnome stood in front of the piano and used his excellent voice to imitate the piano music. The two of them had perfect tacit coordination and displayed superior musical talents. A lizard man in a tuxedo walked over from the other end. He bowed to Sherlock and took out a photograph album that contained the photographs of succubi, orcs, gnomes, lizard men, and even slimes. "Welcome to Knowledge Seeking Hall. We provide all sorts of learning materials and professional home tutors. You may take a look at the home tutors' introductions." Sherlock stopped the lizard man from bringing more introduction photographs. He said, "I've made an appointment. Lord Sherlock. There should be a record." "Okay, please follow me." The lizard man took Sherlock to a door in the circular main hall. There was a long corridor behind the door. On the door were the words, "High-class VIP area. No unauthorized entry." Sherlock followed the lizard man and arrived in front of a white wooden door. The lizard man knocked on the door. "Come in." A hoarse voice came from within the room. The lizard man nodded at Sherlock before leaving. Sherlock pushed open the door and walked in. A hoarse voice came from an executive chair that had its back facing Sherlock. "Lord Sherlock, what good stuff have you brought today?" "Yes, they're good stuff." Sherlock pushed his black chest into the room. "Being the friend of a superior devil is my honor." The executive chair turned around gradually. A snake-like creature who was slender at the top and thick in the bottom sat in the chair, slime. Sludge monsters were ugly, but slimes were cute. Sherlock passed his goods over to the slime, whose large eyes were extremely cute as they moved around. The slime used his wet hands to receive the chest and place it inside his body. Before long, the black chest dissolved in the slime's body. The magical items in the chest fell out as though they were suspended in a gelatin dessert. They floated within the slime's body. Yes, they are superior quality items. I can feel the strong mana aura. The slime spoke in a hoarse voice that was in contrast to his cute eyes. He said to Sherlock, "The price of the goods." Sherlock muttered, 300,000 magic stones. The slime quickly said, 250,000 magic stones. 350,000 magic stones. Deal. Sherlock took out his magic stone card and passed it to the slime, who also took out his card. They completed the sale. Yes, Lord Sherlock. The slime adjusted his chair slowly and slumped comfortably into it. He said, "The son of the Grand Duke is coming to Winterfell. Don't you want to meet him? I heard you have good relations with him. He is looking for you." That is the information I received. Which Grand Duke's son? Sherlock asked, puzzled. The son of the Grand Duke, Alexandria, the slime said. They are announcing the coming of Alexandria to Winterfell daily. I've read about it in the newspapers. I know him. Actually, I'm not that close to him. Is he looking for me? Is there a reward? Sherlock asked. I don't know about that. You know that my trade is not above board. I don't usually bother with such news, the slime said. That's a pity. Sherlock took out a round adamantine rock from his pocket and passed it to Slime as he said, "This is the transaction fee." The eyes of the slime lit up when he saw the round adamantine rock. He took the rock, and an image appeared inside. Red Ridge Examination Script, for creatures who love learning. There was a bunch of data, Underworld Ancient Language, Biology, Chemistry, and Mononuclear Study examination questions. The slime inhaled as he looked on with greed. Then he exhaled comfortably and said, "Ah, learning." Sherlock turned to leave and muttered to himself, "Such a decadent creature." The black tunnel was illuminated by the faint light-emitting vines, which provided visibility of up to 100 meters. Beyond that, nothing was clear as it was too dark. A group of gamers gathered at the exit of Eternal Kingdom. It was a newly opened exit. It wasn't far from the Spider's Lair tunnel, but it had always been out of bounds to the gamers. The gamers could see it, but they were unable to use it. Previously, a second beta gamer passed by this area. He wanted to see if there were any newly released areas or if there was a bug that would allow him to exit. What if the development team had installed the exit? The gamer tried his luck, and he went out of Eternal Kingdom. The news spread like wildfire, and a new announcement appeared on the discussion forum. Dungeon. Eternal Kingdom, Update Log version 0.18. Dungeon. Eternal Kingdom, version 0.18 official update. Released new unknown map. Eternal Kingdom was never a safe place. There are various dangerous underworld creatures and terrifying magical beasts. The Spider's Lair is only a basic training ground. The citizens of Eternal Kingdom, the heroes of the Underworld, the northern areas of the dungeon are opened up for you. You may explore freely. 1. The new area map will be updated live according to data submitted from the gamers because we don't know what is in the area. Really. 2. The new area map is extremely dangerous. Gamers with lower than weapon level 3 are not encouraged to explore. 3. Please don't venture out too far because the revival system only works within Eternal Kingdom. 4. All of the natural environment can be destroyed and is irreversible. Please don't make things difficult for yourself by destroying the path permanently. 5. Do not expect to encounter any NPCs. We made a trip. There are only underworld creatures and magical beasts that will devour you. 6. If you discover magical beasts, return to the dungeon and report them at the first instance or make a post on the discussion forum. There will be rewards. The same goes for Underground Forest. 7. I will leave this open. I will add more details when I am ready. Removed the area. Ancestral Ruins. The citizens of Eternal Kingdom have rescued the Ancestral Ruins, so we removed this game area. Gamers are denied entry. Added a new skill, Mana Skills. I have already published a detailed explanation in the public announcement. Updated a new PvP area, Northern Underground World Gladiator Arena. New gameplay, Gladiator Fight, will be officially opened in 3 days. The details of the gameplay will be displayed on the signboard outside the Dungeon Lord main hall. Please keep a lookout for it. Chapter 133. Added monsters secretly. Lord Sherlock sat in the middle of the dungeon core main hall in front of Brew as he observed the images on the screen. Teams of a few hundred goblins walked in the tunnel. The veteran gamers brought the willing novices out of the new exit to explore the new map. This was only the first wave. There were several waves of gamers behind that consisted of the main bulk of gamers. The waves were made up of guild members. Sherlock prohibited the goblins from taking Brainiac's beetleman with them. It wasn't easy to obtain the first beetleman, which could be useful in the future. Moreover, the gamers could be revived, but the beetleman could not. The main group of goblins followed the widest tunnel. When they encountered a fork, they would send small teams to explore. The underworld was very well connected by many forks that occurred naturally from the tunnels. There were natural areas such as underground streams, caverns, and underground forests. Many of the tunnels were created from the activities of the underworld creatures. For example, the spider's lair was originally a tunnel that connected to the surface world and was later developed by the underground spiders. Sherlock had just purchased the Eternal Kingdom dungeon and developed it for 2 months. He had roughly surveyed the surrounding areas, but he didn't have any impression. To Sherlock, those underworld creatures weren't a threat to him. Killing them was bothersome and a waste of time. Who would want to remember them? Looks like the gamers have initiative. The only question is, Sherlock turned to look outside Eternal Kingdom. There were less than 100 gamers working in the dungeon. Lord Sherlock, most of the gamers like to explore newly opened maps at the first opportunity. This situation won't last long because exploring maps will not garner them reputation points and gain currency, Brew said. The daily requirements of the gamers such as food, equipment repair, the learning of mana skills, and the upgrade of reputation level all require reputation points. As such, they will have to come back for daily missions. Without a rapid transit system and the boredom of the 10th Mile Hill Sword God, most of the game's activities are restricted within a boundary. Like what Brew had said, those gamers were unable to be free of Brew. At least in Eternal Kingdom, they required reputation points and gain currency. Most importantly, they had to be within the premises of Eternal Kingdom for their revivals. If they ventured out too far, they couldn't be revived. Sherlock observed the activities of the gamers. The number of gamers in the main tunnel dwindled. Sherlock wasn't worried, he merely wanted to observe the gamers to see what they would encounter outside. The gamers were astonished by the new area, and it brought them joy. Most of them were feeling exhilaration. Awesome, oh my god, I wonder which deity created this game. The reality simulation is awesome, and they made it into such a grand scale. A group of goblins was resting in a forked tunnel. The gamer Take a Spearhead was the second beta gamer who was speaking. Along the way, many gamers felt the same way. Though the game producers were lousy, the game was extremely fun. That was what the forum members always said. Just the game itself was already part of some arcane technology. Your compliments came too late, Sealhead Ling Chong said as he sat by the side and enjoyed his clay. Dragonborn sat between the two of them and looked on silently as they bantered. Initially, he was worried they would fight. However, after knowing them for some time, he understood that while they might be harsh with their words, escalating to a fight was quite difficult for them. Their team was led by 2 veteran gamers to explore the map. They were the earliest team to break off from the main group to explore a forked tunnel. They ventured in the forked tunnel for close to 10 minutes and saw a cave entrance that was similar to a spider's lair. To ensure mapping efficiency and maintain their combat strength, they decided to rest and regroup. After resting, they would venture into the cave to explore. Dragonborn sat on the ground like the other gamers and rested. The 2 veteran gamers looked as though it was their first time leading, and they didn't have a strategy for exploring the map. They didn't make arrangements for other gamers to spread out to explore and then return to a designated spot to gather. Dragonborn thought about it. If he was leading the team, he would use the dispersion method to increase the efficiency of exploration. With the discussion forum, even if they encountered danger and were killed, they could post the information on the forum at the first instant. But it was more fun for many of them to gather around and chat while they explored the map. The group of second beta gamers wasn't fully aware of their surroundings while they were chatting noisily about life and complimenting the awesomeness of the game and the producers. Behind a nearby pile of rocks, a figure was observing them silently. Arthur swung his short sword at a huge gray monster that charged at him. He stabbed and killed the monster while using his shield to protect his side from the attack of another strange monster. The brute force of the monster made Arthur back up a few steps. He knocked into his comrade, and that stopped his retreat. The attack came abruptly and fast. More than 10 strange gray monsters that walked on all fours attacked the main group with 200 to 300 gamers. There were 20-odd gamer casualties. Their corpses and their equipment were carried off by the main group. The creatures that suddenly attacked vanished without a trace, as though they had never appeared. Only a creature that was randomly killed by Arthur was left behind. It was proof that the terrifying creatures had just attacked. The creature didn't have any fur on its body, and while the size was similar to an underground spider, its movement and power were far superior. Their attack styles weren't like the underground spiders, which used bashing and piercing attacks. They used their razor-sharp claws to inflict damage. Their appearances were similar to Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. The only difference was that they had faces that looked like lizard men. Everyone, including Arthur, was thinking about the same thing. The lousy game producers had secretly added monsters outside the dungeon. Chapter 134. Sneaky Figure. In the dim tunnel, there were many strange rocks and about 200 goblin corpses scattered along the path. In the darkness, a hidden figure with a pair of squinting eyes observed the goblin corpses. At a further distance, a vicious battle raged on. The dark figure advanced to the battleground and hid behind a huge rock. He peered out and watched warily. A strange four-legged creature surrounded 20-odd goblins. They were sparsely equipped with a standard short sword and a shield. Some had armor without a helmet, and some had helmets without a breastplate. The battle was chaotic. "I've seen a ghost?" A goblin wielding a short sword, a shield, and who was without body armor looked at the unknown four-legged creature before him. The goblin's head was full of sweat, and he was trembling. His eyes were full of anger and fear. He gritted his teeth in anger as he said to his comrade, "I only used my cell phone to browse the forum for strategy guides during class, but my form teacher confiscated it. I had to write a corrective letter and inform my parents to retrieve it. Why is my form teacher so irritating? I don't know what to say. I haven't encountered such a thing." A goblin said normally, even though one of his arms was broken and he looked grotesque with all manner of wounds. "Stop chatting and focus. We're being annihilated," another goblin said. The goblin dragonborn said, "I'll distract them while you take the chance to escape. Don't know whether we can flee. The monster's too fast. Why don't we take our chance and fight?" another goblin said. "My slashes are all miss. How can I fight?" The goblins continued chatting, even though they were in a precarious situation. The unknown monster charged forward, followed by a bloody massacre. When the massacre was completed, the unknown creature dragged the goblin corpses and returned to the nearby cave. The mysterious figure hiding behind the huge rock walked out and stood next to the grotesque goblin corpses. He looked around and squatted down as he started searching. He removed all the equipment on the goblins. Thousands of goblins gathered at the plaza outside the dungeon core main hall. Goblins came out from the teleport portals continuously. The goblins were chatting enthusiastically. "Gosh, that's too difficult. We were out for less than an hour, and so many of us were killed? Didn't the lousy game producers consider the game difficulty? DMN, my plate armor from Spectre College. Quick, form a team to retrieve our equipment. That place was full of monsters. How do we retrieve the equipment? Let's try our luck. Anyways, we've nothing to lose. We'll grab our equipment and run back to safety. If not, we'll have to carry bricks for an extra hour. I feel we shouldn't be that reckless. We should have a proper plan. Shall we ask the NPCs? And collect information? Good idea." Some gamers went to talk to the NPCs to collect intelligence. Some went back to carrying bricks as they waited for the veteran gamers to come up with a strategy. Some gamers couldn't bear to lose their equipment and ran back to retrieve it. Some gamers were selling equipment in game currency, while others practiced their Mandarin and carried bricks diligently so that they could buy mana skills and train with Moros. Eternal Kingdom bustled with activity once again. In the carpenter workshop, Mufasa stirred the mixed clay with a large ladle and said, "Strange monsters outside the dungeon? A four-legged creature with a lizard's head? I don't know. I haven't been adventuring. I came to Eternal Kingdom via the teleport portal. It's dangerous outside. The creature you mentioned sounds scary. Stay in the dungeon, it's safer. In the blacksmith shop, Simba was forging with his hammer while more than 10 apprentices observed quietly behind him. In front of him was a queue of gamers waiting to buy new equipment. A few gamers went over in a bid to talk. Simba threw his hammer and showed his finger as he tilted his head and said, "Shut up. If you ask the 122nd time, you're dead." At the training ground plaza, a four-legged creature with a lizard's head? Dire wolf? I don't think so. Why are you asking me all of a sudden? Why don't you bring his head back for me to see? There are many dangerous creatures outside, so how can I recall all of them? What? Suggestion? I suggest you train for 300 years before going out. Why do you want to adventure? Lord Sherlock takes care of your food and lodging. Why don't you work diligently? You are the worst trainee that I have taught. What's there to adventure? In the Lish's burial hall, the noise of chattering filled the room. Brainiac remained silent. The noise of chattering filled the room. At the flower bed, monster? Who isn't a monster here besides me? Little Fairy hugged her arms and turned her head away as she said, "Humph. I'm not answering this question because of Raintia." In the dungeon lord main hall, a sign was hung on the entrance. "Don't knock on the door. If you do, your account will be terminated. At entrance number 1 of Eternal Kingdom. Make haste. The train's leaving. Those who are going to the spider's lair to obtain raw materials and upgrade your equipment, make haste. Wait for me. I haven't boarded the train." The beetleman moved off and made pit-pattering sounds. Arthur, not wearing pants, Sylvanas, burning chest hair, and Peasant walked warily along the tunnel sides, which were filled with scattered rocks. The 5 goblins maintained silence. Even when they interacted, they whispered. Peasant, not wearing pants, whispered to Peasant in front. "If there are monsters, you'll run out to fight them." "Wait, aren't I the magician?" Peasant, who was in plate armor and wielding a short sword and kite shield, asked. The equipment they were using was stored by the elite team of 5. Their previous equipment was lost outside when they explored the map. "Didn't you learn the wind protection mana skill? With such awesome defense, if you don't become the tank, who will?" Burning chest hair said, "I'm using the dagger for lightning critical strikes." "Shush, don't talk. We're arriving at the massacre location. There's movement in front," Arthur reminded them as he frowned and raised his arm. They immediately kept quiet and followed Arthur. Using the scattered rocks as cover, they hid themselves and watched. Tens of figures were busy picking up equipment on the ground. Chapter 135. I have to recruit a secretary. While those tens of figures were collecting equipment at the desolate battleground, 2 nearby gnomes and 3 goblins charged at them. When Arthur and his team got too close to them, the figures fled while carrying a handful of equipment, which emitted clanking sounds. A few pieces of equipment dropped to the ground and made pom-pom sounds. The dropped equipment tripped one of the figures, who fell to the ground and made a caw-chaw sound. Then he remained motionless. Arthur charged forward and raised his short sword to stab the fallen figure to death. When Arthur saw the face of the figure, he was stunned. It was a pile of scattered skeletons. "Gosh, where's our equipment?" Take a spear hit looked at the empty space in front of him. Besides the bloodstains that indicated a prior battle, the corpses, armor, and weapons were missing. Were they taken? Stolen? The monsters did it? The game system refreshed the area? The gamers didn't give up. They dispersed and started searching. Take a spear hit, Sealhead Ling Chong, and Dragonborn formed a team and started searching for their equipment. After searching around in vain, the 3 of them sat slumped on the ground. "Gone? Everything's gone? I'm thinking of A1. Take a spear hit said listlessly. "Then please quickly, my sister wants to play this game. Please apply to the game producers and transfer the second beta gamer status to her. Please." Sealhead Ling Chong, who was in underpants, grasped his fist and begged Take a spear hit. "I've decided. For the sake of your sister, I shall endure huge pain and continue playing," Take a spear hit rebuked. While the 2 of them bickered, Dragonborn stood up and looked at the nearby scattered rocks. A figure flashed by. Dragonborn was about to go forward and check when a creature covered in sludge jumped out from behind the rocks. Only a pair of small squinting eyes were visible in the body of sludge. "Gosh, what's that?" Take a spear hit, who was bickering with Sealhead Ling Chong, saw the creature who was about the same height as him. He was shocked and stood up. You? Are looking for that group of goblin warriors? The strange creature asked using inferior underworld common language. The previous group? This is an NPC, Sealhead Ling Chong said to take a spear hit. Did you come from the dungeon? Is that the newly opened dungeon? The strange sludge creature asked. That's correct. We're the citizens of Eternal Kingdom, the Underworld Warriors. Do you have a mission for us? Take a spear hit braced his chest and said, Please help me. The strange creature shouted at them. Let me get the other gamers. Dragonborn stood up to call the other gamers, but Sealhead Ling Chong stopped him. Dragonborn was puzzled as Take a spear hit gazed at him. Both of them looked devious as their eyes squinted like half-crescents from their crooked smiles. They whispered, Shish, this is what the veteran gamers mentioned, a strange encounter mission. Why did you collect this trash equipment? A small black dragon stood by Brainiac's side as he watched Brainiac using the crystal ball to control the skeleton soldiers. He was collecting the equipment dropped by the gamers. This is Lord Sherlock's order, Brainiac answered as he wrote down his journal entries in his mind. 88. Two converted gnomes appeared. They are Arthur and not wearing pants. This is an important research objective. 89. Lord Sherlock values the trash equipment, which may be related to the goblin's secret. This is an important research objective. So it's an order from my nemesis. Hee. Eggface nodded and straightened his body before sitting down on a rock in his lair. He crossed his front legs and hugged them. Isn't Lord Sherlock our boss? Brainiac lifted his head and looked bewildered at Eggface. I'm the Dragon of Darkness, King of Sinful Realm, and Resistor of Godly Punishments. How can I have a boss? I've only signed a truce agreement with my eternal foe, Eggface said arrogantly. Do you think he's a simple superior devil? No, Lich, you're too young. He's from the primordial era, a devious devil in the annals of history. He's the Seven Sins originator, Karmic Fire Terminator, Judgment Tongue, Hades ruler. To fight against me, he had to have these titles. Eggface placed his front claws on his waist indignantly. Brainiac looked emotionlessly at Eggface. Eggface didn't obtain any response from Brainiac. He felt the awkward silence and changed the topic. What does my eternal foe intend to do with the goblin's equipment? I don't know. According to his character, he'll put them up for sale and sell them to the goblins, Brainiac replied without any feelings. Eggface was taken aback. He thought he heard wrongly, but after confirming that it was true, he opened his mouth slowly. Brainiac ignored Eggface and wrote down notes in his mind. 90. I have to investigate the Seven Sins originator, Karmic Fire Terminator, Judgment Tongue, and Hades ruler. 91. Lord Sherlock has a delusional disorder. Return the equipment to the gamers who are willing to work for a day. Assign missions to deal with this matter. The commerce area has to continue its development. This location will be the new transaction market for the gamers. Then, I'll develop the industrial area. I'll use my magic stones to install appropriate facilities, Sherlock said to Brew as he drew on the dungeon planning diagram. Such a perfect plan, Lord Sherlock. I thought the exploration frenzy would last for a few days. I didn't expect so many gamers to give up. Facing such a high difficulty level, I feel their current levels are insufficient. They should practice more before venturing out, Brew said. But some gamers contacted outside creatures. Do you want to intervene? There's no need to intervene. If I do that every time, will I have my personal time? I'm recruiting them for the dungeon's development. I'm not their nanny. Sherlock shook his head. As Sherlock was planning for the future development of the dungeon core burst into flames. A newspaper and 2 letters flew out from the flames. Sherlock picked up the letter with the words, To my friend, Lord Sherlock, Spectre College Academic Department Deputy Director Professor Bacon. My friend Lord Sherlock. Ah, dearest Lord Sherlock, it has been a month since we last met. I am nostalgic of the time we spent together. Didn't he only meet Lord Sherlock a few times? Brew asked, puzzled. Sherlock ignored Brew and continued reading. Because of academic affairs, I have been sent to Winterfell on a business trip. I'll be visiting Lord Sherlock with some inquiries. If possible, please arrange for the goblins to come to our college for the graduation research. Due to the long lull period, a few obstinate professors feel that Lord Sherlock intentionally reneged on the contractual obligations. Of course, these are baseless accusations. Lord Sherlock, I don't think that you will forget about our contract and arrange instead for the goblins to participate in gladiator fights and clear the surrounding areas of the dungeon. I have 100% trust in Lord Sherlock. However, Lord Sherlock has to make haste as the school is receiving intense pressure from complaining parents these days. Does Lord Sherlock have any students that require assistance? Wishing Lord Sherlock good health and goodbye. Love from Bacon. Did Lord Sherlock forget? Brew asked after reading the letter and thinking for a long time. Sherlock shrugged his shoulders and picked up another letter with the words, "To my friend, Lord Sherlock, Northern Underground World Gladiator Arena Boss, Poisonskin. My friend Lord Sherlock. Ah, dearest Lord Sherlock, it has been 10 days since we last met. I am nostalgic of the time we spent together. It feels strange. Didn't Lord Sherlock just meet him once?" Brew said. Sherlock did not respond. After our Northern Underground World Gladiator Arena shareholders meeting, we decided to sign the strategic collaborative contract with Lord Sherlock. In regards to your requests, they have approved all of them. To show that we value Lord Sherlock and your warriors, we will be arranging a premiere. We would like to invite Lord Sherlock and your warriors to participate. The detailed specifications of the premiere are as follows. Wishing Lord Sherlock good health and goodbye. Regards from Poisonskin. Very whimsical indeed, Brew muttered to himself. Sherlock put down the letter and picked up the newspaper. He said, I feel that I have to recruit a secretary.